The item I'm showing you today was advertised on eBay using three of my favourite letters, NOS. That stands for New Old Stock. Yes, this is an unused device that's remained in its box since it was made in the late 1970s. It is a JT215A digital timer. Now let's get inside the box and I'll explain exactly what a digital timer does and how it works and why I got this particular one. So let's have a look. Oh, what's that? Apparently it's information about the cardboard box itself, courtesy of the manufacturers of the box, which are Sangyo Company Limited of Tokyo, Japan. So you got information on here like the bursting test is £275 per square inch. Pause if you want to read more of those. I think we best move on and have a look at the timer itself. Now, as far as boxes go, this one ticks more than a few for me. First off, made by Pioneer, looks like their beautiful 1970s hi-fi equipment with that brushed stainless steel front on it, and also, of course, I get a nice clock. I've always wanted a flip clock, never had one before. Now, flip clocks, you've more commonly seen that type of display as split flap displays at airports and stations used to show the destination boards and things, but flip clocks were a thing for a number of years. You can still get the occasional one, however, they were more commonly used before people moved over to LCD or even LED displays. Audio timers were most commonly used in the 1970s as a way to automate recordings. So the way you do this, you'd have your radio tuner set to the station you wanted to record, you'd have your tape machine set to record, you'd have both of those plugged into the sockets on the back of the timer, and then you'd have the timer set to whatever time you wanted the recording to start. When that time was reached, the power would go to both of those sockets, which would then mean the devices switch on and automatically start recording. Now, you'll have noticed that those power outlets on the back, as well as the power lead that comes with it, are all US. However, the device itself is multi-voltage, 120 up to 240 volts at 50 or 60 Hertz. And you can adjust the voltage that goes through those two power outlets on the back by moving this plug here. The centre of this is the fuse, which you pull out first of all, then you pull the plug out of the machine and spin it around to the relevant position. So now that'll have 240 volts going into it and out of those two power sockets, up to a maximum of 500 watts total. Now, I should stress that this thing does no voltage conversion. Whatever goes into it also comes out of those two sockets. However, one thing you'll have to do, depending on where you are in the world, change that Hertz setting on the bottom so that the clock can keep accurate time. Right, enough blathering, let's get this thing plugged in. Got a UK power plug adapter here, switched off the light so we can see what it looks like in the sort of semi-darkness. We've got an orange glow there lighting up those digits. Turn on the power to the sockets, we've got a little red light comes on there as well. And let's just get the time set on this one. So at the moment, what's that, 4:15? So to do that, you've got to turn the little dial at the left hand side just to the left of the display. You can only turn these ones in one direction, these flip clocks traditionally, so you have to go forward in time. You can see we've got a PM indicator on the digits there. So what was it, 4:15, just slow it down, there you go, bob on, first time. Now to set the timer, you use the middle of those two wheels and you turn it in the anti-clockwise direction. So let me spin that one round and we'll set the timer for say 4:30. Very satisfying clicks on this, it feels like you're breaking into a safe. Just get it there, that's 4:30. Right, okay. So we switch it to auto, so that means the power supply will come on automatically when it reaches 4:30. And while we're waiting for that, let's just have a look what we got in the instructions here. So we've got this authorised service stations from 1977. Let's have a quick look through here. What I'll do, I'll pause on a few of these very quickly. You'll have to press pause if you want to read them though. For people in the US, they're all US places, but you might recognise some names from the 70s and perhaps into the 80s that aren't there anymore. I thought it might be interesting for some people. Now this seems to be a device that was sold to US Army personnel for some reason, because when you look at the places around the world where you can take this for service, the only one that's mentioned in Europe down at the bottom here is the Navy Exchange, Army and Air Force Exchange Service in Germany. And looking at the warranty card here, I noticed at the top it says for US military personnel only. And looking down the list of the different types of devices that they were manufacturing at the time, I can see in there that they mentioned reverberation amplifiers. I don't know if you remember, I did a review of one of those not too long ago. So let's just take a quick look at the instructions to see if there's anything I've missed out. Thank you for purchasing the JT215A digital timer. This unit combines an accurate digital clock with a time-actuated power switch. It can thus be conveniently employed in a wide range of applications. Instructions don't say it can thus be often enough for me nowadays. Let's have a look at those applications that we could use this thing for. Unattended recording in conjunction with certain specially designed tape decks. That's what we mentioned. Power on time can be set as desired. It then switches off automatically approximately 70 minutes later. I didn't know that. Recording can be performed while you are absent or sleeping. Sleep timer function lets you fall asleep to music while the unit automatically turns off the stereo system up to 3 hours later. I can see that being useful to some people. I've never used those sleep timer functions. I've had them on quite a few things over the years, but it's not really my thing, but I'm sure some people like them. Anyway, other applications include wake up function by turning on the stereo system power at a desired time, turning on the power of a table lamp or other appliance up to 500 watts maximum total power. So yeah, you can have this turned on a radio or a table lamp on your bedside table and have a nice retro alarm clock, I suppose, although of course it doesn't beep. I notice in the illustration further down the page, the tape recorder that they're using for that one is of course a Pioneer device. It's the RT707. I happen to have one of those tucked away here in the corner. So of course what you'd be doing is setting it to record by pressing in these physical buttons here, and then it'll automatically come on at the time that you specify. Oh, there's one thing I should mention. I'm sure people will ask if I don't. When the clock changes digits, it's not noisy. It doesn't make a big click sound. There's a very faint click that you can hear from inside the unit, but that's about all. It's not something you'd find annoying. Now, going back to those instructions for a second, it says that when you set the timer, each click of that timer wheel equates to 10 minutes. So basically, you can set the timer with a 10-minute accuracy. Now, if you're really into stats, but you weren't satisfied with the ones that were written on the outside of the cardboard box, there's some specs on screen for you here. If you want to press pause, you'll have to do that if you want to read them. I'm more interested in the device itself, though. I think this is an absolutely beautiful clock. I always wanted a flip clock. Now I've got one, and just look at it. Absolutely gorgeous. Anyway, let's move forward in time a little bit because we want to see this timer go off. So 4:30 is when it's due to go off, and we're now up to 4:29. So keep your eye on that little red light at the top right-hand side, and we'll see when it clicks. So there you go, it came on at 29, which is about 30 seconds before it was due to come on, which is probably right because you don't want your recording to start late. Anyway, I'm going to open this up and we'll have a look inside it because I know there's going to be quite a few people who will want to see what's in here, although there isn't going to be that much worth talking about, but let's have a look anyway. So we've got the clock mechanism at the front there. You can see we've got a transformer on this side which powers the clock. That's a 120 volt transformer. The clock motor itself is also 120 volts. You can just see the specs on the back of here. So the clock mechanism is all 120 volts. However, I am powering this from 240 volts, which is of course getting adjusted with that transformer. I'm spinning this around manually so you can see how the mechanism works there. I've got it unplugged at the moment, but you can see the numbers, how they fall into the window at the front and how they're held back by that little clip at the top, and then when it reaches the end of an hour, how it pulls the next digit down. Now, as I mentioned before, the power that goes into this is exactly the same voltage as the power that comes out of it. So if I plug it into 240 volts, even though 120 volts is going to the clock, 240 volts is going across the back and getting supplied to those two power outlets that are on there. Now you might be wondering what it was that killed off hi-fi timers in the early 80s, and it's down to buttons. You see, buttons used to be physical things like piano key type buttons or ones that you'd push into a device that would remain in position even when that device was switched off. So the next time you plug it in, it just immediately starts doing whatever it was that you'd left it set to do when it was switched off. However, buttons changed. They ended up becoming these kind of electronic soft touch buttons. Those don't retain their position when you switch the thing off. So you switch on a device with these electronic buttons, it just goes into standby. It doesn't automatically start recording. It's the same kind of problem that I had with the Belkin Wemo. I ended up getting one of those things thinking it would be really useful, then finding out pretty much everything in my house, when you switch it on, it just goes on into standby. It doesn't do anything unless you then go and press another button. Now the model I've been showing you in this video, new old stock Pioneer JT215A. I wanted this particular one because I wanted the flip clock, and I paid quite a little bit of money for it. However, you can get these quite a lot cheaper. In fact, if you've seen Lazy Game Reviews, and I know quite a lot of subscribers watch both our channels, Clint ended up getting a digital timer out of one of his thrift shop visits, which was a particularly nice model, a digital one, and he was using that to power his toaster to make some Pop-Tarts. And that pretty much sums up what's great about hi-fi timers. Whilst you probably don't need to automate reel-to-reel recordings from the radio anymore, you do still need a clock. And why not get a clock that's beautifully constructed, a gorgeous retro design? It's got a socket doubler on the back of it, and that's always going to be useful. And in addition to that, you can have it with a logo on from one of your favourite manufacturers, whether it's Pioneer, Marantz or Sony. So if you want to get hold of one of these, I've got links in the video description which should take you to a search on eBay which will get you in the right general direction. But I'll warn you, these things are a little bit addictive. When I went onto eBay just sorting out the links that I could put underneath this video, I saw this beautiful Sony one. Again, new old stock, and just had to order it. So if you get one, just be careful, they can multiply. Anyway, that's it for the moment. As always, thanks for watching.